Welcome to the Pint Glass Football Podcast.
We are excited to be joined by Jack Easterby, who served as the Executive Vice President of Football Operations for the Houston Texans, and before that, he played a key role with the New England Patriots organization. Jack, thanks for coming on the show. Excited to have you here.
Yeah, thank you guys for having me, man. A great sports week, great conversation. Appreciate you having me on.
Yeah, Jack, we obviously, we're talking about some of the great things you did, and I want to get into some of those things, your time in the NFL. But before we get to some of those things, I want to just let the listeners in on what you're up to these days, what you've been working on recently.
Well, I was really fortunate. I grew up in Columbia, South Carolina, and so we were blessed to have a great relationship with so many people in the Southeast in athletics. And, whether it was when I played college sports at Newberry College just outside of Columbia or just my first several years at the University of South Carolina. So a lot of my relationships were Southeast, East Coast based. And so when we left Houston, we moved back to the Southeast and have been so fortunate to be able to reestablish some of those connections with people in college athletics, a lot in the SEC and some different places down here, and just kind of be, get back in touch with all the different people that we've been blessed with before we kind of went on the pro tour with New England and Houston. So it's been a great last, let's call it year, just a lot of really cool opportunities, mainly consulting with college sports teams and a few pro teams that are trying to get their workflow right and trying to, pivot with the ever-changing business that is athletics now.
Now, I wanted to shift here and talk about some of your time with New England. Obviously, a massively successful franchise. You worked closely with, of course, Bill Belichick, Tom Brady, and that historic run of success they had there. What insights, Jack, did you gain from just observing and being around these guys, their preparation, the leadership, their attention to detail? What kind of insights did you gain from that experience?
Oh man, we could do probably 10 podcasts on that. It was a phenomenal stretch for me and my family. We moved to Foxborough, not knowing exactly every detail of, how it would go or what we would see. And it was just an absolutely phenomenal run where we had an incredible interaction every single day in that building with some of the most high level people in sports history, from Tom to Bill to Josh McDaniels to Brian Flores to Matt Patricia to Joe Judge to, Matthew Slater to Devin McCourty. And I could go on and on and on about names and people that, I just learned so much watching them work. I mean, frankly, I know I learned a lot more from them than they ever learned from me. I was so humbled by being, included in everything immediately. When Bill hired me, he, right off the bat, brought me in and said, "Hey, this is what I want you to do. Have at it." And so we were able to, right away serve the group and help, hopefully, and be a part of kind of establishing some more cultural dynamics there, and hopefully some more belonging and some more attachment to mission and those types of things. But in the big picture, the time in New England really taught me about the value of team. It taught me about the value of connectivity and how much people who are believe in each other can do. And really, I would say, allowed me to really believe, or to re-believe in the fact that when you do the work, when you put the work in, and you have a connected group, really anything can happen. And so, yeah, I was so fortunate. A lot of fun days on those practice fields in New England, a lot of cold days too. But really was fortunate to learn so much more from them than anyone up there, I'm sure, learned from me.
It's rare to have somebody on like you that can really kind of pull back the curtain and kind of give us a look into this great franchise, this historic franchise, and the things you guys did there. Specifically, obviously, you mentioned the group and the team here. What would you say was maybe the most impactful lesson, though? If you had to narrow it down, the most impactful lesson that you worked or that you learned specifically from working with Bill Belichick?
Yeah, I would say if I had to say one thing that really took away from my time in New England was just a really insatiable desire for improvement. I think that the entire Patriots organization, specifically on the football side under Bill, was always trying to get better. And I think if that was the way we ate, if that was the way we slept, if that was the way we met, if that was, how long we communicated, maybe at night, about different subjects. Bill was always open to iterating so that you can find a way to get better. And I think that not everybody has that same level of curiosity, right? That has just an incredible depth to it that can continue to ask, how do we get better? Well, what about this? What about this? What about this? The continued curiosity that just is massive in relationship to providing energy to actually improve. And so, yeah, I would just say overall, I think that it was probably the insatiable desire for improvement. Saw Tom as the best player in the history of the sport, always desiring to get better. Saw Bill as the best coach in the history of the sport, always trying to figure out something new so that we can get better. Josh McDaniels, some of those guys on the coaching staff, always trying to find a way. How do we get somebody open better? Or how do we, do whatever we can do to improve our offense or defense or whatever it may be. So it became a part of our DNA is do anything and everything you can do to just keep getting better.
Do you have, let's say, a mantra, or do you have like a Easterby rules of when you walk for, let's say, when you go from South Carolina to, you actually started at Kansas City from the NFL to the Patriots to Houston, like what are you taking from each place, and what do you, and I just made that up, that's probably not even a thing for you, but like what are the Easterby rules when you say, okay, I'm here now, what are you assessing first, and then what are you attacking first?
Yeah, I would say one of the things that I've learned that I really, really, really try to say to myself and or say to my family first is that it all matters. I think that one of the biggest lies that people tell themselves, whether it's an athlete who's trying to improve or maybe a administrator who's trying to improve their craft, is that there are certain things that matter and there are certain things that don't matter. As long as I can hit a fastball, it doesn't matter what I eat, or as long as I can hit my driver 325 yards, it doesn't matter how I putt, or if I'm an athletic director, as long as I get big name coaches, it doesn't matter how I lead. I mean, I think the reality is if you don't believe that it all matters, then something that you put in the category as less than is going to come back to bite you, right? Like if you put something off to the side and say, hey, that doesn't really matter, then it's probably going to cost you when you can least afford it. So the best way to wake up every morning and to lead and to care for people and to think and to dream and to play is just to say it all matters. Everything matters. Every communication, whether it's this podcast interview or it's, what I'll do tomorrow or the next day or how I interact with my family, everything matters. And I think if you believe that, then you give yourself a chance to be better at all of it versus just trying to, kind of segregate out your effort and, parse through when you're going to focus and when you're not. I just don't think we're made to do that. I think we're made to be on and be good and be focused at all times. And then when we rest, we rest. But at the end of the day, I'd say the answer to your question is I really believe it all matters. And I think people who believe that tend to be more successful.
NFL teams looking for someone like yourself, what type of skill set do you bring to the table, or what values and skills do you bring to the table that these NFL owners are looking for?
Yeah, I think that one of the things that, when you're going to reset a franchise, right, or when you're going to, try to get a franchise to take it to the next level, you're really looking for a curriculum builder, someone who can build a curriculum that, can use the consensus of the organization and use the consensus of subject matter expertise, whether that's athletic training or data and analytics or, obviously different areas in the building. You want to be able to build a curriculum that each one of those areas helps the team win. And I think I've been very fortunate to work, in so many different areas of these buildings. And I think that provides a unique look for me if I'm going to a new club to try to establish a curriculum that leads to winning. What curriculum? I mean, a lot of people have a curriculum that they just do what they've been doing because they did it last year. And I think that asking those questions of, hey, does what we're doing help us win? I've just been fortunate to work in organizations and roles that really see the things that are holding back the team from winning, and can eliminate those things, and then reconfigure some things that will hopefully help the workflow improve. So I appreciate you asking that question, because I do think right now teams that are trying to get their organization to the next level, that's the key is to reimagine the workflow, to reimagine the way they solve problems, and to reimagine how the week and the month and the year is structured each year, so that the team can put its best foot forward across the board on every level.
Yeah, absolutely right. I mean, Jack, I think you can even go further. Like I said, I'm very much into the business of football, and I know one of the things you said, like you have the essential skills like strategic vision, financial acumen, relationship building, and risk management, what you call the operator CEO type. And which is what you fit, as you said, going through all of your experiences from South Carolina to where you are now. You bring all of that to the table, because it's not just the team, it's also everything else around the team, the branding as well. So I think what you're saying is absolutely correct. And I always use it, and I say it even goes beyond that, because some of the things that I've seen you say and have read about you, like you can take these things into your everyday life, whether it's entertainment and sports, but like you can take that same approach to just your life in your own business as well.
Yeah, and I think that's, when you're building, a team, it's really a team of teams. You know what I mean? It's a team of people with expertises across the board in different workflows, and the team of teams really, whether it's in athletic training or in media or in data and analytics or maybe in scouting, all of those teams got to function at a high level, right? And so getting people to work well together, having people have camaraderie as they, walk around the building and feel joy and feel energy to do their best, and to feel like they're valued and they're being counted on to do a good job, and that hopefully being encouraged to perform that job at a high level. I think those are things that I've been blessed to be a part of and see kind of transition into reality. I've been real fortunate to see those things go well. So yeah, encouraged by hopefully that opportunity here as we look towards the future.
Jack, you mentioned something just now, analytics. How much should analytics play in football? I know there's a lot in the NBA. You got to shoot as many threes as possible and things like that. I don't know if that works in the NFL the same way that it may have translated to Moneyball out there with the A's, or what the NBA has become in shooting threes. How do you feel about analytics in the game today?
I have kind of renamed in my mind the word analytics. I think it's kind of a buzzword people use, and don't always know what that means. I think what I've tried to do is I think that, really there's two types of things that go on in the building, right? Number one is data capture, right? Whether that's video in practice or, statistics that come from every day, or, statistics that come from the game, or whether that's miles per hour or whatever those things are. So data capture is kind of one bucket. And then I think the other bucket is decision science, which, I think it does have a big role in all of sports today. It has a role in every major business in our country and around the world. And so I think, really it's important to divide those two things out. I think we should always be capturing data to be able to see what decisions we made, how they worked out. We should be seeing how each day plays out, whether that's how much time we spend in a bus or a plane, or how much time we spend meeting, or how much time we spend practicing. We should always be capturing data, because capturing data will lead to being able to memorialize what happened, so that you can look at it objectively in the future. But as it looks to decision science, I think decision science is, quite frankly, the part that you need to make sure has been incubated very, very thoroughly before you put it into practice, right? I think that's the part that where analytics, quote, has gotten a bad rap, where sometimes things that haven't been incubated all the way get thrown at a coach or maybe get thrown at an executive, and really they need a couple more laps around the track before they actually test that out and put it into play. So I'm a big fan of data capture. I think any business or sport that's trying to get better, they should be capturing as much data as they can. And I'm a big fan of decision science. I think that as you capture data, that data, if it's organized the right way, should give you some pointers as to what you should do, and will hopefully lead you to, making better decisions, and will show you what decision points, really do make a difference throughout the game. So that would be how I would say it. I think analytics is kind of an antiquated term, just a general term that maybe represents, some of the newer age and the modernization of some of the tech that's in sports. But if you're talking about specifically what's going on, I think it's in those two buckets: capturing tons of data and then allowing that data to give us a North Star of what decisions need to be made.
Wow, that was a great answer, by the way, Jack, and really, really in depth. And I love that because I think so many people, the average fan, doesn't really know that type of insight on it. Jack, obviously, with your time with New England and all the things that you've done in a really impressive resume, and I'm so excited to see what you do next here. Working alongside a guy like Bill Belichick, I often thought about this guy was really a master of getting the most out of his players and often using guys and repurposing talent to fit into specific roles. While you were there, what did you learn about evaluating and developing players' potential during that time with him?
Yeah, I think that's a good question. I think that I learned a ton about how the game is won, how it's lost. Bill used to always tell us you can't win until you keep from losing, right? So whether that was penalties or turnovers or whatever it was, Bill was so detailed on how he challenged us every single day to make sure we didn't do things that hurt the team and we did things that helped the team. But I think the way that Bill always constructed the roster was that he was very intentional on using players that could have, or getting players that had repeatable gifts under pressure, right? And so whether it was Danny Amendola and how he could get open on third down, or whether it was obviously Julian Edelman and his strength as a special teams, punt returner early in his career, or whether it was Devin McCourty playing single high safety and his range at the back end. I think what Bill did was he knew roles, he created roles and new roles that could actually help under pressure be consistent and make sure that we could perform in a lot of variable scenarios, so that gave the overall team a consistency and confidence so that we wouldn't flinch no matter what was going on. And so I think assessing people and their gifts is kind of one thing, but then also assessing people's gifts that they can do under pressure is another thing. And Bill really did a great job of thinking about our roster, for example, from January backwards, right? Like thinking about, okay, when we're on the road at Denver in the AFC Championship game, can this tackle block Von Miller on third down when we got to have it 3rd and 3? And I think that was the way Bill evaluated. He didn't evaluate from, okay, could this guy potentially, one day be something that he's not right now? I mean, yes, there's naturally some projection elements on all scouting, but I think Bill always thought about the high pressure moments, the tough, smart, dependable kind of cornerstone traits. And he said, okay, if this guy can do this now, then we know when he's moved into the earlier days, he's going to be fine. And so I think there was a development aspect of Bill that was always looking for kind of priming the pump for the deep waters, if you will. And so anyway, I could go on for days about how awesome, Bill was and how he saw, roles in people and created, roles for people. But in the end, he thought about it under pressure and thought about, how each person would perform under pressure and how that would help the team win, or what that would do to impact the team.
And I mean that was never more evident in the Do Your Job Well documentary that everybody's seen, where, like you said, he started in January and went backwards, where they practiced that play, the interception against Seattle. Everybody knows where everybody's up and all that. They didn't run Marshawn, but where Malcolm Butler intercepted the ball, but they, like you said, he's working backwards. He was practicing that, in training camp all the way to that point. And then even on the other side with Bill Belichick, and I am a little bit of a nerd about it. Like the walking down of the sideline in that Super Bowl, the walk down the sideline away from everybody to make Pete Carroll think he was going to time out. That's chess. And they were playing checkers on the other side. That little one thing that he did that seems so minute really put a seal on what happened in that game. But before we let it go, I'll be remiss if I didn't ask you, do you have maybe at least one funny story about Bill Belichick?
Oh man, I got tons of funny stories. I think one of the funniest things I remember when I first got to New England. So I'm originally from Columbia, South Carolina. Now I had lived in Kansas City a little bit. When I first got to New England, part of our rookie education was every year that we would help players specifically who were from the rural Southeast, but really any player. When the weather got bad, we would help them drive or learn to drive a little bit in the snow. We would go get them a snow brush from AutoZone, and we would teach them about ice pick. And we had a video that we would show about, you know, don't don't skid your brakes and all the different things just to kind of help them right when that first snow hit. And I remember Bill in one of our meetings, our staff meetings, saying, hey Jack, why don't you teach these young guys how to drive in the snow? And I remember thinking, man, I am from rural South Carolina. I'm like, when it snows where I'm from, we shut everything down for a month. I'm like, I don't know if I'm the one to teach this. He said, yeah, I want you to go research it and I want you to present it to the staff next week. And I remember thinking to myself, golly, here I am presenting to some of these New England staff, Ernie Adams, and some of these amazing staff members have been here for a decade, and I'm going to be presenting to them how to drive in the snow. Kind of just was an incredible example of Bill's just unbelievable acumen for leading people and things that needed to be knocked out before it got cold and the snow started coming down. But he had this South Carolina boy talking about ice picks.
Actually since the beginning of the season, there's been a lot of pushback, and I don't know where it's coming from, but there's been a lot of leaks of full on interviews from some players, whether it be after the game or in maybe locker room interviews, where I'll speak to Houston specifically. CJ Stroud was speaking on his faith, and it seemed to have been cut out. And however it got out, and then now there's a lot more. You see a lot more of players showing their faith. I just think I saw in the Arizona game, Scatterbo, someone came over from the opposite team to ask him to pray for him. Well, how big is faith in everything that you do?
Yeah, for me and my family, faith has always been a huge part of our upbringing. Faith has always been a huge part of our family. It just is a cornerstone for how we see life, what we see our mission as, what we see our purpose as. And I really think faith helps you navigate life. What your outlook is, what your purpose is, having a stable, emotional intelligence, having a stable support group. I think all of that comes back to your faith. And I think when you have a faith in God that allows you to know that, you're going to be okay and know that, you've got gifts and talents that hopefully make people better. I think when your faith can really help you with real practical things, whether it's relocating somewhere or transition or dealing with adversity. I think your faith can really provide you with, quite frankly, a roadmap on how to navigate life's toughest challenges. So, yeah, my faith is a huge part of who I am, our family. We are strong Christians. We believe that God doesn't do anything by accident, that everything he's done is planned and intentional. And so that's helped us navigate things that, in a lot of ways may be more challenging to others. We just see God's hand in all of it. And I think it's really helped us navigate things better.
Once again, guys, we've been joined by Jack Easterby, who served as an executive vice president of football operations for the Houston Texans. Before that, he played a key role with the New England Patriots organization. Absolutely awesome to have you on the show, Jack. Thank you so much for your time.
I'm just humbled to be on, guys. I'm thankful for any opportunity to share good, positive, encouraging stuff to help people grow and hopefully help people get better. And, we live in a tough world right now. Obviously, y'all know what's going on in California and all the different challenges. So just trying to use sports as a chance to make a difference in people's lives and encourage people and hopefully uplift people, while we navigate all this winning and losing. Appreciate you having me on.
Thanks for listening to the Pint Glass Football Podcast. Be sure to subscribe and follow us on Twitter at PGF Podcast.